Okay, hello. I'm back for the fourth video introducing the faculty members for the upcoming AJC coaching school. Today, it's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce a mentor of mine who I have known and been working with for, nearly 9 years now, Dr. Keith Blevens. Keith and I met in 2013 when I first was doing some coach training. And he presented his work. And what really struck me was, whilst on the surface, it seemed similar to maybe what other coaches and trainers and people had introduced me to, it had a real profound impact on me. And so about 6 months after that, I hired Keith, and he's my go-to guy whenever I'm stuck on an issue that I can't seem to resolve in my own life. In some ways, you could call him my secret weapon. So I'm really glad that you agreed to be part of the faculty for the upcoming school, Keith. And I know that if the coaches in the school get a deeper understanding of your work, it will enable them to be more impactful as coaches, which ultimately leads to more prosperity. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of the school.
Thank you, Ankush. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think the thing that you hit upon right there is the meaning and the value and the impact. You mentioned struck you. Something struck you. When something strikes a person, they're like, whoa, there's something clicks, something moves you. You hear something, it's going to be new to you, but it's going to be also welcome and meaningful, soulful, moving. And that's the thing that I've continually found in my work for many, many years now, is that feeling and the resonance it has with people, their clients. And so if people can learn about that, I learn more about that, and learn more about what that is all about, then I think you've done a great service to your students, and they will then in turn, have a great service to share with their own clients. So that's kind of what I'm all about. There's a lot of words and other ways to talk about it, but there's something about that power and what that power isn't. And it's not an intellectual power or a worded power or a fancy oratorical skill power or pushing people one way or another power. It's a felt sense of truth that every person possesses. I think they, them in a way, they might have a string implanted within them for that. And when they hear something that resonates with it, it makes them resonate as well. And there's a certain sort of mutual connection that happens. And so that's, however you account for that, there's some divine inspiration in that. And it's something that can't be produced. It's something that comes of its own accord. But if you know about it and you respect it, I found that the more that other people hear it too, and they come back for it.
Yeah, so I see the diagram behind you, and that's kind of what we're pointing to. And for me, I really see this as a North Star. It's a guidance system almost that I have that informs a lot of my coaching questions or the work that I do with clients. And many times it's allowed me to, help someone solve a problem very, very quickly, often because I'm helping them see there isn't a problem there in the first place. And it was almost embarrassing for me, because I remember early on, I would coach someone and they would say, wow, that's really mastery. How did you know how to ask that question? But I guess having that guidance system of the diagram behind you and pointing to has enabled me to ask really poignant coaching questions that really get to the heart of the matter. So would you be able to give us a little bit of a brief overview today of what that is? And maybe coaches who are listening to this could really, utilize this in their own work.
Well, it points to something that's universally true about the human experience, that there's truth in us. There's truth in the world. Now, it's not truth that's a worded truth, but there is truth. And so that the red line on that diagram behind me just to mention, that's the most important thing. So there's a difference between truth and not truth, truth and everything else. Truth has its own, runs by its own rules. It has its own logic. It has its own calling for people. And conversely, it discriminates between not truth. And so there's something there in my own training for many, many years now. I keep finding that line, that red line that you see behind me in my left shoulder. And that diagram is just a simple, like a photograph of the wisdom to know the difference. There's a difference. And if you once be able to discern that difference, there is a guidance in it. There's a sort of a fallback position. You can always draw upon it. You can always, whether it's forefront in your mind or back on the back burner, there's something that helps you be inspired, to stay strong, to be articulate, to be helpful. And it's exactly the way you put it, because you said you find it again. You find it and draw upon it. And then it inspires you, and it uses you in a way that is impersonal, but informative, and weeds out trillions of other misdirections. So there's kind of one universal direction about how the mind works. And then there's trillions of other ways that are not related to that, or irrelevant from that, or discriminated from. So this is from another dimension. And then, and oftentimes with our clients, that line is not so clear to them. But if they meet with you as a student, as a teacher for them, a coach for them, they're keen to find that resonance, whether they know it or not. Everyone on earth is looking for that specific thought. It's a thought of no thought, of not intellectualized thought, but a quietude. And every one of your clients is completely interested in that, whether they know that's what they're looking for or not. Sometimes they don't, but they'll come across it, and then they'll come back to it, and they'll come back to it because it speaks to them deeply. And that's really important for our work, because you'll have clients who come, they stick, they refer other people, they get results, and they might say, I don't know what it is, but I like that. I really got a lot out of my sessions, or I got a lot out of that program with that person. And so it's a great way to sustain your clientele on into the future, and a great way to get other people involved, because they know, they think, gee, I really like this person. I really like what I learned there. Why don't you give it a try? And that's the only way that people build practices. It's through results like that. They have something that was moving to them. It wasn't just the fancy packets or the sales job or the whatever, but it was something that hooked into them, that they really knew to be true. And I think that's your secret weapon as a coach. And it's your secret weapon, Ankush, and it's mine too. So I have clients. A couple of days ago, I had a woman that met with me 25 years ago, and she came across something and wanted to hear again what I thought about her situation. She was dealing with her son. And so that's a kind of network that you can develop and count on. It's almost like an invisible network. It's sort of like a spider web of connectability out there to the people you've reached. And sometimes you reach them through public presentation or media presentation or whatever, but it's something that they remember. And that makes you, as a coach, stand out and makes you trustworthy. You can't put a figure on that.
I think you're really hitting on something there, Keith, which is the essence of the whole school, which is, and you use the word results, and I think this is something that the whole school is about. It's not about fancy marketing techniques or, say these 3 words to get somebody signed up or anything like that. It's really built on the results you get as a coach. And this is why I asked you to be part of the faculty, because the work you've introduced me to has helped me get better results with my clients than anything else. Until we see that, and until we are able to get powerful results. And this also applies to the price that we charge. Like you said, it's invaluable, because the higher you want to charge as a coach, and I've seen people say, oh, just charge more, just charge more. Well, you've got to back that up with something. It's got to be worthwhile paying for, and it's got to have an impact on people. So you spoke about a lady that came to you. Do you have any examples that maybe you can talk about? You know, because I've got lots of examples of when I've worked with people who really had what they didn't even believe it was possible to have these kind of changes. But do you have examples of the kind of work and impact your work has had with people that you've worked with that maybe seem unusual to other coaches?
Sure. Just for example, there was an executive vice president of a large equipment company. So he was one of 6 vice presidents of this huge company. If I said the company's name, everybody would know it. So he's at this very top, but he started out and he happened to attend one of my events, and he was a manager, not even the plant manager, but he was a manager in one of these subdivisions far removed. His main headquarters now is in Chicago, and he was in Ohio somewhere, which is, a long way away. But he heard something, and so he started tracking me, and he would come out to my office every year. He would call and schedule, and bring out his number 2 guy. And all they wanted to do was hang out with me. And I mean, hang out, like we would meet, we would have very important conversations, wide ranging, but there was always something really, I don't know, of great value. We would laugh a lot. And he believed in it. He loved it. And as I said, this was a great expense. I mean, he was a very, very high salaried executive, but he would take his time, come out and bring his number 2 guy. And one time I was in Chicago working with another company, and I called him up and said, would you like to have dinner? He said, oh, absolutely. He was so excited about it. So we had dinner, and he took me by the corporate headquarters, and there was a building, high-rise building, really tall. And he said, look at that. You see up on the 7th floor there? He says, you see those lights are on? I said, yeah, I could see that. He says, those are, the reason those lights are all on is there's a lot of young lions that are my charges in my division. So he'd gone from plant operator to plant manager and then called up. And now he's at this level. He says, those guys are really missing it. He said, they're so ambitious. They're so looking for a better job. They don't even perform very well at their current job in my department. I have to get them to listen to me and settle down and be less drawn to ambition and more drawn to results, because that's really what makes my company work. That's how I got from being where I was to where I am now. And he says, that's all I teach. Every day, I'll bring in, I'll get the students, I'll get anyone around my office, bring them into my office, and we discuss this. We go over it and over it. He said, it's this hidden secret for business results is this kind of connection that you taught me about. You, Keith, taught me about that. And I was like, me? Because I didn't really, it's funny when something is so much a part of you that you don't even notice it to be that particularly special. But he saw it and he resonated with it. And then he showed one other thing that's just kind of cute. He says, look at this. I want to show you this. So he says, tomorrow we're having a presidential meeting. There's 1 president, 6 vice presidents. And he says, listen to this. And so he reads me an email from another vice president. And the vice president says, I want you to be really awake to this. There's a lot of subterfuge going on, and there's a lot of infighting, and you could be bushwhacked. You could be thrown by some of the questions that these other vice presidents are all after you. And he looked at me and he said, and he just laughed and he said, what is he thinking? What is he thinking? And he said, I guarantee you tomorrow at that meeting, he will have 35 slides at least to talk about how complicated and difficult and all these forces that are coming at him. He said, I've got 3 slides. That's all I'll use. He says, it's utterly simple. But he said, he can't simplify. He can't see what he is his own worst enemy. And I'm my own best friend. And I thought that was really, really cogent. So that's the kind of equipment that I think your program can offer people, is to learn how to find this reserve of results in their communication, in their decisions, in their choosing what they're going to do to develop things and not do. There has to be a wisdom. And there is a wisdom built into this program with your speakers and yourself. And that's what's going to sell this program, and what's going to continue to create a wiser coaching group. It'll be wisdom, not anything less. That is a really important thing.
When you say wisdom, just for people who are listening to this who might not understand what that means, what do you mean by that?
Well, wisdom is an interesting thing, because wisdom isn't intellectually derived, is it? You know, when you hear that if there's a wise leader, it's not that he may not be the most highly trained or the most sophisticated or the most charismatic, but wisdom runs the world. You look at leaders, you go into industry, you go into communities, you'll find wisdom. And sometimes it's with the mothers that are there holding court and creating peace on the streets of their communities. Sometimes it's with government leaders. Sometimes it's with law enforcement people. It could be anywhere. But those people are competent, and they're measured, and it's hard to put your finger on it, but you can see it. It's true. But you think, well, where did that come from? Did it come from their background? Not necessarily. They might have had dire circumstances growing up, but they have a wisdom. So wisdom is a thing that, and very few people who are wise would ever credit themselves as wise. They're really, really, really disinclined to do that. That's how you found a vein of wisdom. So if people are listening for whether to sign up for something that would help deepen that in them, then this is the program for them.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, it's funny, Keith, because I was actually talking about this in a slightly different way to someone today, about how what's really guided me, because I've been introduced to your work very early on in my coaching journey, is it's helped me really be discerning around what is going to work for me, what's not going to work for me, who to work with, who not to work with, what to follow, what not to follow. Because in coaching, what I found was that there were all these people, all these voices saying, you should do it this way, you should do it this way, you should do it this way. No, this is the right way. No, that's the right way. And also, no, you shouldn't do this and don't do that. And what's really been helpful is being able to discern what is going to be helpful or not. And sometimes finding things where I might go, well, you know what? I like this bit, and that little bit there, that's not helpful, but I don't need to, I can leave that bit aside and take this on board. And you're really right, because what I'm not planning on doing is, have 20 people on this course and to have, 20, copycats of me. Absolutely not. This is about helping coaches find their own way to grow their coaching practice, and doing it in the way that is aligned with who they are.
Yeah.
As opposed to what you say, what I say, what any of the other faculty members say. It's about taking what works for you and trusting yourself to do that, because I think that's really important.
And when they have someone like yourself or myself who knows that, like one of my great mentors was like that about me. He said, I can't tell you that, Keith. Like you'll have to find that on your own terms, which I didn't really like. I wanted him to tell me. But he said, not only I won't do it, I can't do it. You have to find it for yourself. Now, that was a tough lesson, but it was a really powerful one, because it gave me the inclination and the power to look within my own self. Because you're right, all your students in this program, they're gonna get flooded with decisions every day. Yay, this, that. How do you find your way? And you bring another important point there. You can see, well, this is good enough. This is good enough. And this other part, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bath here. There's a baby in there. And I can throw out the bath, but I'm keeping the baby. And that's discernment. And you want people to get discernment, discrimination, not prejudice, but discrimination, because there's trillions of wrong ways to go. And there's really one right way to go, but you got to find it for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Keith, for giving us this, a little bit of a flavor of who you are, Like I said, I'm so excited to have you as part of the faculty, part of the school. I'm looking forward to learning from your masterclass. I always do. I know I presented the diagram behind you to Steve Chandler's school actually many years ago, and it really impacted the people in the room. Steve loved it. And so for my school, I could do that, but I'm so glad I get to bring you along to share that with us. And I know it's going to be really impactful for the coaches who sign up for the school. So thank you for your time today. And I look forward to having you part of the faculty.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Ankush. Thank you so much.